Well, it's nice to be live with a David that shows up. For all who know, Thursday on my channel, David Wood was supposed to come and be live when we were interviewing an ex-Muslim. And what was he doing? He was sleeping, ladies and gentlemen. But luckily, Dr. David Falk likes to show up on time, so he is here tonight. Welcome,
Hey,
Dr. Falk.
it's showing up at the time's the least I could do.
Least you can do, yeah. So
I didn't say I'd perform. Just say show up.
He'll show up, yeah. Maybe take a nap halfway through or something. But for those who know, I get to
Sleep
give
midstream.
David. For those who want to know, I get to give David Wood a hard time. I'll be on his channel tomorrow. But yeah. So welcome back to the channel, Dr. Falk. I'm glad to have you back. For those who don't know, recently Cameron Bertuzzi posted a video attacking the Mormon Book of Abraham, which is in the Pearl of Great Price. Claims to have been a lost book written by Abraham himself, found by Joseph Smith. He says he translated it, and wow, there are problems with it. And so Cameron put out that video showing all these problems with it, and then Mormons responded. And I'm sitting here scratching my head going, you know, there's probably the most famous Egyptologist online that we all know. Why is no one asking him about this? Because Joseph Smith claims he translated this from an Egyptian scroll. So why don't we just ask the YouTube Egyptologist that we all know? And so I decided to bring you on to talk about it.
Okay. Here I am.
Yeah, pretty much. So what are your thoughts on the Book of Abraham and this elaborate translation? Are you convinced this is a lost book written by Abraham himself, going back to the Middle Bronze Age?
No.
Okay, well, there you have it. Thanks everybody for coming. We're great. No,
that's it. It's over.
Pretty much, yeah. Well,
I can give you all sorts of reasons why I don't think it's a lost book from the Middle Bronze Age.
Yeah,
it certainly wasn't originally written in Egyptian. Almost certainly. Egyptian syntax is very peculiar. Okay. It doesn't have dependent clauses at the beginning of sentences. The Book of Abraham is full of dependent clauses at the beginning of sentences. This is one of the reasons why you see translated texts from the Middle Bronze Age, usually very sort of stilted in syntax. And that's because the syntax of Egyptian tends to have the independent clause at the beginning, followed by the dependent clauses. It almost never puts a dependent clause at the beginning.
Interesting. And yeah, that's a pretty big problem for this, because as you said, we see a lot of dependent clauses. Well,
and it's full of anachronisms. It's full of vocabulary that you wouldn't find from the Middle Kingdom period. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. A lot of problems. Well, and this has always been, every time I've talked to an ex-Mormon, I go like, well, why did you leave Mormonism? 9 times out of 10, they bring up the Book of Abraham as at least one of the reasons they left Mormonism. They found out that when Egyptologists looked at the scrolls that Joseph Smith had when they were found later, this turned out to be nonsense. When they looked at the facsimiles, they were like, this is nonsense. And that was a major problem. So I was fascinated as to what Mormons had to say about this. And so when Cameron put out his video, and it's on Capturing Christianity, if you guys want to see it, I was like, there's got to be some Mormon responses. So I watched a couple of them, and we're going to respond to one of them today. One that I think is going to be and so like, he's very charitable. He's pretty nice for the most part. So this isn't meant to attack
he's doing Mormon voice.
Yeah, this is not meant to attack Mormons personally.
No, it's not meant to attack Mormons.
Right. We as Christians do believe Mormonism is heretical. So we want to call you into what you would call Nicene Christianity, which we would call just Christianity. And so again, this is not meant to personally attack you. We just see problems here. And I figured it'd be best to get a subject matter expert here who knows Egyptology like the back of his hand to really dive into this. So are you ready to get into this video a little bit?
Sure.
All right. We'll get to some super chats here in a little bit. We're going to play a little bit of this video first, and then we'll take a short break and do some super chats so you get them in now. Real quick, though, if you guys want to subscribe to Dr. Falk, his channel is linked below. It's Ancient Egypt in the Bible. He just has a great video today responding to Frank Turek on the Exodus. He's got a lot of great videos on that as well. So check that out. But without further ado, let's get into this video here. And this video is from Ward Radio, which has put out some videos trying to defend Mormonism, but let's get into their response to Cameron here.
I jump in. This video provides a good overview of the arguments I've heard against the Book of Abraham, and it packages them into a lean and well-edited video. Honestly, it's the best Book of Abraham video on the internet in terms of watchability. But it also contains many of the bad assumptions and errors that I've seen in other treatments of the Book of Abraham.
All right, so real quick, I just want to say he acknowledges Cameron's video did a pretty good job, although he's got some critiques.
For watchability.
So, watchability, yeah.
For watchability. That's kind of like, well, he got his grammar right.
What did you think of Cameron's video, to be fair, though?
To be fair, I think it was very standard critique of the Book of Abraham. I don't think it was particularly deep or insightful. It was your typical run-of-the-mill apologetic video of the Book of Abraham.
Yeah, and for anyone in the future who wants to critique the Book of Abraham, talk to a subject matter expert first, is what I would say. So let's get into some of these. We'll get to Cameron's arguments, and then we will get to the Ward Radio's response.
How did Joseph Smith supposedly translate these papyrus fragments that contained Egyptian hieroglyphs, which were still a mystery in America? The answer lies in the notebooks he kept, the so-called Egyptian alphabet and grammar documents. In these pages, Smith and his scribes lined up Egyptian symbols from the scrolls, then wrote out entire English paragraphs alongside them. He insisted this was a divinely guided translation, the same method he'd used to produce the Book of Mormon just a few years earlier.
This is a bit of sleight of hand from Cameron. Joseph Smith claimed that the Book of Abraham was both a translation and revelation from heaven, but he made no such statement about the Egyptian alphabet and grammar. Smith also never claimed that he used the Egyptian alphabet and grammar for the Book of Abraham translation. We don't even have a record that a single person involved with the Egyptian Papers Project made that claim. We know that Joseph Smith wasn't directly involved in all the Egyptian-related papers from Kirtland because he wasn't even in Kirtland when some of them were written. This doesn't make sense if these papers are supposed to be the product of Smith's unique divine translation abilities. According to Dr. Kerry Muhlstein, the leading expert on the topic, the historical record suggests Joseph wasn't even the one most involved in the Alphabet and Grammar Project, and it was instead W.W. Phelps.
And Joseph may have been involved in this. We know he's aware of it and looks at it from time to time, but we don't know how involved. Maybe he's heavily involved. Maybe he's not involved at all. It seems like it's mostly a W.W. Phelps project. But anyway, he creates this larger thing that's called the Grammar and Alphabet of the Egyptian Language. And many people have supposed that Joseph uses that to translate the Book of Abraham. The problem is that it makes no sense at all.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that right there? You're claiming they didn't use any sort of like translation stuff.
Well, there's a skin of truth to what he says. Okay. And the skin of truth here is that Joseph Smith probably did not use the Kirtland Papers. Now, the Kirtland Papers eventually became the grammar and alphabet's misspelled, of the Egyptian language, which was early Mormonism's attempt to decipher the Egyptian language. Okay. Now, we have no idea if Joseph Smith actually used that document. We know he was aware of it. We know he was aware of it. We know he read it. We don't know if he used it. But the other thing that sort of slips under the radar here is this whole, it's a translation and a divine revelation.
Yeah, that's what I was
okay. Here's what's going on here. Mormon apologists here want their cake and eat it too. They want a docetic text. Okay, because that defrays a lot of criticisms about this being a translation. The problem with the docetic text, however, is a docetic text is not moored in reality. So they also want to connect it to real Egyptian papyri. You can't have it both ways. You can't have a text that comes directly from an angel and still have it moored as a translation. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And frankly, the Joseph Smith's method is one that's more akin to channeling than it is to, say, translation. Any recognizable translation method. Okay. In fact, his wife had documented that when he would translate these texts, like the Book of Abraham, he would put a white napkin over it, over the actual text, as he translated. This is akin to, say, what we would find in say, Spiritist kinds of translations, like Urantia book. Okay, it's a kind of auto writing where you are channeling a text through a medium or a foci or a focus. It's no different than using how a spiritist might use a magic wand to focus his power, or a medium might use a crystal ball to peer into it to see the future. It's no different than that. So what we're talking about here is not the same concept as, say, divine inspiration we find in the Christian scriptures. With divine inspiration, the human author is in control. The human author for divine inspiration in Christianity is God uses the circumstances to direct the person to implement his will. But the human author has complete control over word choice. Michael Heiser used to say the Christian authors, the biblical authors, didn't go into a trance, wake up and go, "Oh, wow, this is really great. I wonder what it says." That's more akin to UFO cults. Okay. Mormon scriptures are not inspired. They're channeled. They're basically given special apparatus through which they receive divine revelation, like the special pair of glasses they called the Urim and the Thummim, or the seeing stone is another channeling device that Joseph Smith used. He also used Egyptian papyri as methods of channeling.
Now that's sort of interesting because, I mean, the Book of Abraham says in the beginning, a translation of some ancient records that have fallen into our hands. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, that's not really what's going on here then, if what you're saying is correct. This is not a translation. So
not translation.
Either
not in the truest sense.
Yeah. Either we're not really being fully truthful with what we put in when we wrote this stuff down, or we actually did a translation. We did a horrible job, like, as we're going to get into when it actually look at the Egyptology here a little bit. But this ultimately just makes everything here unfalsifiable here. Like it causes, like, it seems like the LDS response is just to retreat almost into the realm of unfalsifiability here, to the point where it's like, what's the point of even, using this as anything? Like, what, like it just seems
well, again, it's part of wanting their cake and eat it too. They want that unfalsifiability. That's why they're going to appeal to the docetic text. They're going to appeal to the docetic text because they don't want it to be falsifiable. Yeah. But at the same time, too, they still need it to be a translation moored in some sort of reality. Yeah. So again, they want their cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Like, pick a narrative is kind of how I feel. Like, just pick a narrative. Tell if it's a translation, it's got to be a translation, and we should be able to test that. If it's channeling or it's some sort of divine revelation, don't call it a translation. Don't so little
then
ridiculous.
It's not a translation.
Yeah,
it's something else.
Yeah. Let's get to this next section here. And again, guys, I encourage you to watch the whole video. It's linked below. We're not going to play literally everything because time's sake, we want to get to your super chats, for example. But also, I mean, like, some of the stuff, it's just, we're trying to hit the main points is what I'm trying to say. So
1912, Episcopal Bishop F.S. Spalding mailed the Book of Abraham facsimiles to 8 recognized Egyptologists. Their responses were devastating. Breasted politely but firmly dismissed Smith's claims as uninformed. The legendary Flinders Petrie said that there was not one single word of truth in Smith's explanations.
Did you catch where those quotes were from? 1912. Over 100 years ago, when Egyptology was much less developed. Later, we'll see that contrary to Dr. Petrie's assertion, Joseph Smith gets multiple things right in the facsimile.
Oh, honey, you shouldn't have said that. That was, sir, Dr. Falk, that was a line. When I heard that, I'm like, gee, I wonder if I could do a stream here with someone I know who might be an Egyptologist today. It's like, oh.
Well, again, this is taking the skin of a truth and wrapping it over a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what they're doing here. They're appealing to doubt, essentially. This is appeal to the idea that, in the 1910s, 1920s, Egyptology was so undeveloped that, the whole language is different today. It's not. Okay. Our understanding of the Egyptian language has changed relatively little since that time. And still, in fact, the authoritative dictionary, which is Kurt Satha's Word book, is from the 1920s. It's still considered to be the gold standard in Egyptian dictionaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the fact is that even though our understanding of Egyptian language has advanced, like we now know about things like the second tense, okay, and some of the lexicography has improved, the translations done by Breasted are still about 90% correct.
Okay.
So if you're going to go there, you better be more clear about why you think, say, Breast's opinion is invalid.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a kind of hand waving.
Yeah, a little bit of hand waving. It doesn't really address the points. And again, we can just talk to Egyptologists today, and they're not like going back to the Book of Abraham and going, "Oh, actually, there might be something here." Like that's not what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Egyptologists don't really even talk about this that much because it's not in Egyptology. But when they have looked at it, not impressed, to say the least.
Well, most Egyptologists don't consider this a legitimate document.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
for sure.
I mean, it's not like Egyptologists are generally not interested in the Bible because it's not interesting. It's boring compared to hieroglyphs.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't address the Book of Abraham because it's not even tangentially related to Egyptian texts.
Yeah, for sure. So with that, I'm going to get to some super chats here real quickly, and we're going to get right back into that video. So Christian Theologic says, I've tried looking for a church that offers evening services. However, the problem is that they either preach Sunday school level theology. Yeah, I know what you mean. Or are part of a progressive denomination. Yeah, that's a problem. I don't know if I can help you with that because I don't know where you live. I can't go check out churches for you. I mean, I don't know, man. That's difficult. Maybe look for a good church and go to a Bible study if they've got a Friday, Wednesday, or Thursday night thing. Try something like that. See if they got something throughout the week you can go to. But if you can't do Sunday, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it's difficult. Hey, IP, I feel inclined to do apologetics in my country, but I also like drawing and would like to do an original Christian show. Suggestion. Well, do drawings, do animations from those drawings, make high quality videos for your country. Yeah, just combine it. You can use that to make videos and then find some way to animate them. I'm not an expert on that. I don't do animations, but look for
I think it's perfectly acceptable to do both apologetics and the arts.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I do both. I do Christian ancient Old Testament history, and I write novels.
Yeah,
it's part of cultural engagement.
Yo, everyone!
Who should be doing it?
Dr. Falk actually wrote a novel recently. If you guys want to check that out, what's it called again?
Reliquary of the Dead.
Ooh, so an Egyptian fantasy or sci-fi? What would it be categorized as?
Archaeological science fiction.
Science fiction. That's the word I was thinking of. I said sci-fi though, but yeah. Oh no, not Dr. Falk. Isn't there any other Egyptologist you can annoy? LOL. I think he's joking. Yeah, I have to annoy him. I have to keep him on his toes. Advice for getting up for church on time, particularly for a night owl who 9 times out of 10 has a messed up sleep schedule. Okay, real simple. Fix your sleep schedule. Learn some self-discipline and fix it. Stop staying up late. You want to
do what I do. Just stay up all night and just go to church the next day.
There you go.
You don't sleep then. That's what I did.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Stay up
No,
all
we're
night,
talking about-
go to church.
We're talking about the Book of Abraham, but what about the Book of the Council of Nicaea? You see, you have not considered the Book of the Council of Nicaea, Dr. Falk. You know what that's about?
You talk about the proceedings?
No, Sneeko. He when he converted to Islam, he was talking with a Christian on his channel, and the Christian was like going back because Sneeko was saying they removed books from the Bible, and at one point Sneeko says, like the Book of the Council of Nicaea, and the Christian was, you think there was a Book of the Council of Nicaea? And he goes, yes, Sneeko, there was a Book of the Council of Nicaea. Like, so true story. Mike, did you ask a question to ask NT Wright anything about the fate of the Jews, or is Mike Jones just a very common name? I didn't do that. Talk about someone else with my name, so it wasn't me. Look-alike theory for resurrection. How do you respond? That's absurd. Watch William Lane Craig's debate. He debated someone that many years ago and just tore the guy apart. Like, absolute absurdity. It was demolished the guy. The guy even after the debate, I forget his name, but he stopped even promoting that theory. That's how bad he lost. IP, why didn't I join us in Egypt? Well, why didn't you join us in Egypt, apparently? I think you meant you.
I think he meant you.
He
went to Egypt with me.
Yeah, I've had conferences. I was on Timcast, then I was in Wisconsin, then I was in Florida.
You should just blow them off.
Yeah, just blow off all these conferences.
Blow off all these important bloggers and come join us.
Absolutely. So let's get back into this video here. Listen, I got to go on Timcast, guys, when they ask, because those views and subscribers trickle down. They find me, they find the network, and everyone grows. So I try to do that. Let's go to this. Let's continue on from where we were.
But first, we need to understand how we should approach the facsimiles. Generally, translation is pretty simple if you know the source and target languages.
Okay, real quick. For those who don't know, I should just put these on the screen because he mentioned the facsimiles. In the Book of Abraham, he claims to have actually, like, there was Egyptian images, facsimiles, and he claimed to have given and deciphered them in the Book of Abraham. So there's 3 in here, as you can see. And Joseph Smith claimed to give the meaning behind
different sources.
Things. Yeah. Ugh,
that's a hypocephalus. That would have come from a coffin.
What about this one here?
That's probably a vignette from one of the mortuary spell texts.
Yeah, and of course, my favorite one is they claim this is Abraham fastened upon an altar. There's an idolatrous priest of Elkanah attempting to offer up Abraham as a sacrifice, and below him are the idolatrous god of Elkanah, Libnah, Makra, Korash, and the god of Pharaoh. It's like, bruh, not even close. Like,
yeah, not even close in this one.
Yeah,
no,
we're gonna get
close on this one.
He's gonna.
It's clearly a funerary bier with canopic jars underneath, and it's a priest mummifying a dude.
We'll get into these because he's gonna bring these back up later, and we're gonna let Dr. Falk tear into them because I'm sure he's excited. So that's what he's talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
Symbols, however, are harder to pin down and can vary widely in meaning across time and culture. Egyptologist John Gee has said, interpretation of illustrations is one of the most difficult parts of understanding Egyptian texts. A given symbol can have many different meanings, and trying to decide which one the author of the text was trying to convey is at times nearly impossible. Moreover,
stop.
In many instances,
okay, go for it.
John Gee is an Egyptologist. He works at Brigham Young University. He's also a Mormon, and he's been an apologist for the Book of Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
There was an infamous spat between Gee and his advisor, Robert Rittner. Now, Rittner was a former Mormon who basically, he took a look at the Book of Abraham and said, I can't buy this anymore.
Yeah.
And when Gee started coming out as an apologist for the Book of Abraham, Rittner basically said, "Hey, none of your arguments here have merit." And Rittner just took him to town. And Guy's response was, well, you're just being mean.
So
okay.
Sometimes you got to be mean. So let's continue on here.
Instances, we simply don't yet know what some symbols mean. So, can Egyptologists accurately interpret Joseph Smith's facsimiles? Well, most of what Egyptologists know about Egyptian symbols come from around 1200 BC, but the Joseph Smith papyri were produced in 200 BC.
Is that accurate? Most of what you know about Egyptian symbols comes from 1200 BC?
No.
Okay. Didn't think so. I heard that. I was like, that's no.
No, that would be 1200 BC. You're talking at that point at the end of the 19th dynasty.
Yeah.
I mean, these symbols, I mean, just that Leonine funerary bier, we find that in the tomb of King Tut. Okay, there's an actual physical funerary bier that's Leonine like that.
And that's about 150 years prior to 1200 BC.
Yeah, it is. You know, you're talking there the 1330s. Okay, so yeah, he's off here. He's way off.
Well, I mean, like we have.
That's not even talking about canopic jars. Canopic jars long predate that.
Yeah,
canopic jars go well into the at least the early Middle Kingdom, if not older than that.
Well, there's Egyptian pyramid texts, like Old Kingdom. I mean, like there are symbols that Egyptologists deciphered from the millennia of ancient Egypt. It's not just like 1200 BC. Yeah.
No, it's crazy. Yeah. But even if he was correct here, if these symbols were dating to 1200 BC, that's a self-refuting proposition.
Yeah. Because
this is supposed to be the book of Abraham. It's supposed to date to 1800 BC. So if he's basically saying that these symbols weren't around until 1200, he's just refuted himself. He's just annulled the historicity of the Book of Abraham.
And for those who don't know, guys, the Book of Abraham claims, Joseph Smith claimed that Abraham himself wrote this. Yeah. And I've even heard Mormons say they'll take fundamentalist dating and they'll put Abraham even before like 2000 BC. But I mean, like, as you and I know from Kitchen and your work, I mean, Abraham's probably around 1800 BC. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, if we'll take those dates, I mean, it's still hundreds of years off, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it's still hundreds of years off.
Yeah. So, all right, let's continue on here.
At a time when many cultures were mixing together, including Jews, Egyptians and other polytheists were very willing to assimilate new characters and gods into their beliefs and texts, including stories and characters from the Old
Equivocation.
Testament. In fact, a study of over 750 Egyptian texts found many references to biblical figures, with Abraham and Moses being the most mentioned. Additionally, most of these texts came from Thebes, the very location where the Joseph Smith papyri originated.
So this
fallacy.
This is shooting yourself in the foot, because he's talking about around the time of 200 BC. Like, even if Joseph Smith had an actual book that came from Thebes, that just shows it's far more likely to be a product of that very late culture, not something that actually goes back to Abraham himself. This is like the best you can do is get to around 200 BC when there's all these Jewish and Egyptian ideas mingling. That would mean if he actually had a text, it's not actually coming from Abraham himself. And this is not, that's a whole can of worms you open up right there.
Well, I mean, it's a survivor fallacy anyway, because almost all our papyri come from either Thebes or Saqqara, the dry regions. You don't find them in the Delta. There's less than 24 texts of all time periods in Egypt that come from the Delta. So you are going to find the vast majority of texts coming from tombs in Thebes or Saqqara or maybe Abydos. But that's going to be the extent of it. You know, because everywhere else it's too wet. And papyri just disintegrate when it's wet. So, yeah. For that's why through almost all time periods in Egypt, most of our texts that we know of come from those dry regions.
Right.
Not only did these characters show up, but we have some examples of them being used in contexts similar to the explanations given by Joseph Smith. For example, Cameron claims the lion couch scene in facsimile 1 does not refer to Abraham. But we have at least one example of Abraham being associated with the figure lying on a lion couch,
This one's
very
juicy.
similar to the one in facsimile 1. There are
You said this
Pause
is juicy.
This is juicy. Let me pull up a PDF here.
Uh-oh. He's pulling up a PDF, guys. It's over.
Because I've got the original report for this. And this comes from the Greek magical papyri. And let me just move it up here.
Yeah, if you want to put it on the screen. There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Look at you.
I got to shrink it down a little here. So
I can make you full screen here. So let me just solo layout. There you go.
Okay, can you read that?
You bet we can.
All right. Because it's backwards on my screen still.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so this lion couch bed comes from a papyri Demotica Magensia of number 12, lines 135 to 146. Okay, and it's a Demotic papyrus. Now it gets real interesting when you start actually reading this, because it's translated too. And it reads, "You bring a sealed lacuna of copper lacuna, this lion, this mummy, and this Anubis lacuna, while they seek lacuna black scarab lacuna per." And then it starts getting into Gnostic gibberish. Adio Oric Thambito Abraham. Now, this is the only reference to Abraham here, who at Planio Giboioth Muriu, and the whole soul for her. Feminine. NN is just an abbreviation for a female name. Who bore NN, the female body of her, whom NN bore, I conjure the and inflame her, NN, who NN bore. Write these words together with this picture on a new papyrus. Okay, so what we got here is not Abraham lying on a funerary bier, but a woman lying on a funerary bier. This is a woman, not a man.
Uh-oh.
And even worse, this is a magical spell. It's a Gnostic spell that is used. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to copy the words on a new piece of papyrus, put on the drawing, and then write these together with a picture on a new papyrus. And that's your spell. This is coming out of Gnosticism. 2nd century Gnosticism. This is not a text that goes back to anything ancient. This is completely within that 100 AD to 200 BC range, and it's fully Gnostic.
Yeah.
It even has the Gnostic gibberish.
And also, like, if this is what we're getting at here, it makes you think the Book of Abraham is, if Joseph Smith had something, it's far more likely to have been a text from the product of that time. It would be like pseudepigrapha, not something that actually goes back to Abraham.
Well, that whole beer thing, it's ancient. Okay, that's ancient. Okay, that goes back to the New Kingdom. We don't see lion beds prior to the New Kingdom. Okay. So we're talking no earlier than roughly 1550 BC. It's still too young to be ascribed to the Book of Abraham, because prior to the Second Intermediate Period, funerary biers were these large massive chests on sledges that people pulled with ox carts, with oxen. Okay, that was the traditional beer in the Middle Kingdom. It's only in the New Kingdom where we get the Leonine beers. So even if this is what Joseph Smith copied, it can't date to Abraham. It's just not possible. And it's, as I said, it's even worse because this particular spell, even though it mentions Abraham's name, isn't referring to Abraham. It's referring to some woman.
It mentions Abraham.
It mentions Abraham, but it also mentions Gnostic gibberish too. Now, the way Gnostic gibberish tends to work is these sort of nonsense words perceived to be either the names of gods or of secret knowledge incantations. Okay? And there's lots of examples of these. Tons of examples of these. This is nothing unique. There's hundreds of these papyri.
Yeah, that's important right there. So let's get back into this video here. Let's continue on.
There are more examples of this happening.
So do we have like other examples of Jews doing that kind of thing in Egypt around this time period, around 200 BC?
I think so. Some of them are, it's a little bit hard to tell who is doing it. Is it an Egyptian or a Jew? So I'll give you an example. There's a scene that is typically thought of as, in fact, it's very similar to Facsimile 3, where Osiris is on a throne. In these scenes, typically that's how we'd interpret it. Osiris is on a throne and someone is being brought to be in Osiris's presence. But we find a number of these where what is labeled, instead of it being Osiris on the throne, it's labeled as being Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And someone is being brought into Abraham's presence, right? Which is very similar to what's on Facsimile 3. The person on the throne is interpreted as Abraham, right? So is that an Egyptian who's adopted Abraham from Jewish perspectives, or is that a Jew who's adopted an Egyptian drawing? I don't know. And it may be some of both. I mean, there are plenty of examples of these. So there are all sorts of things we have to kind of think through as we approach it.
So, as Dr. Falk said, that's not Abraham. That was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
This is why you got to consult subject matter experts here on this, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this is, as that clip just played, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. If this fits with a culture, if they're trying to say the Book of Abraham fits with a culture of around 200 BC, that's not going to get you back to Abraham.
No,
it's pseudepigrapha at that point. Even if there was a text that Joseph Smith actually had, which we don't have. So
look, it's the Book of Abraham in 200 BC.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the best they can do. This is a huge problem, ladies and gentlemen. It just
this is why they have to go use that demonic magic papyrus. It's all they've got. And Guy and Mulsteed were big promoters that magic papyrus was proof of an early attestation of the Book of Abraham. And they made big noise about this until you actually read the papyrus itself.
Yeah.
And you discover it's nothing like, I mean, the only sort of overlap is that Leonine beer and the name Abraham. That's it. That's all they got here. Yeah. But they never properly account for the counterfactuals. And even Janet Johnson, doesn't make the claim that this is an older text. She doesn't make that claim. This is entirely Mormon apologetics grasping onto that and running with it. Now, what's even more interesting about that text, too, is that the name Abraham is underneath the Leonine bed. Now, in the West, when we caption a picture, we put our captions underneath the picture. Egyptians didn't do that. They tend to put it above or beside. They don't put it underneath. When you go looking for a caption, you go look into either the top right or the top left corner, depending on which way the thing's facing. It's never at the bottom. Something that the Egyptians didn't do. So even their claim that, well, this has to be Abraham because it's underneath doesn't work.
That's a good point. Good point. Let's play this next section here.
But does all this prove that Joseph Smith gave an accurate 2nd century BC Theban explanation of the facsimiles? No. No, it does not. We don't even know if Joseph Smith intended to give the original meaning of the facsimiles in his explanations. Maybe he was giving the interpretation Jews in the area later gave for them, or perhaps they were Smith's own inspired interpretation. We just don't know. So Cameron and Latter-day Saints have to be careful not to overstate their case.
So I just want to highlight, I think he's being honest. I mean, like, as best as they can be. It's just, this is still a huge problem, because if Mormons have to retreat into unfalsifiability land, like, why is this even called a translation in the Pearl of Great Price? It's not then at this point. I have huge problems with the way this is being presented, or the way Joseph Smith presented it. Don't call it a translation then. And if it's just this late Jewish interpretation, listen, even if he had a text, like, that's a problem still, because it was clearly pseudepigrapha, but we can't even find the pseudepigrapha text that he was supposedly working with.
Well, here's what I think is sort of disingenuous about his. In one way, he's being honest. In another way, he's being disingenuous. Okay. He is being honest, in the fact that, Joseph Smith didn't make it clear what exactly the Book of Abraham was, in as far as, is it a local Jewish interpretation? Is it direct from the angel? Is it a translation? Okay, yeah, Joseph Smith wasn't clear about that at all. But to just sort of throw it up in the air and say, well, we don't know what Joseph Smith really meant by this. That's a problem too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, whose view is this then, if that's the case? I mean, I think Joseph Smith is pretty clear that this is Abraham's words. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to trust your own prophet here,
yeah, you just read the Book of Abraham, guys. Like, it says, this is Abraham writing this, paraphrasing. But get the idea. This is supposedly written by Abraham's own hand, or it's supposed to come from him, not from later Jewish interpretation. This is just a retreat from what the simplest explanation of what we actually see Joseph is presenting in the supposed translation. So
it's muddying the waters.
Yeah.
In 1966, curators at the Metropolitan Museum of Art discovered fragments of papyrus that once belonged to Joseph Smith. Modern Egyptologists could directly study the exact scrolls from which Joseph claimed to have translated the Book of Abraham. And surprise, surprise, every expert determined that these were not Abraham's writings at all.
The fragments Cameron's talking about include portions of the facsimiles and some of the surrounding texts. Now, Cameron assumes that the text had to have been the text Joseph Smith claimed to translate, and therefore we have the text he translated. But we have 3 reasons to believe that this is not a good assumption. First, in Egyptian papyri, the text correlates to the picture next to it only about 50% of the time. Even modern textbooks don't always manage to place figures next to the text they reference.
All right, Dr. Falk, is that accurate?
Not really.
Okay. I didn't think it was. That just sounded a little fishy there to me.
Yeah. You're going to find that text and icon do correlate.
Okay.
And this is just, I mean, you might not have difficulty finding the correlation sometimes. That's perfectly reasonable to say. But to say that it only correlates about 50% of the time, no. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that seemed it. I would like to see the guy's source on this, Ward Radio's source. I'm not sure about that.
Second, Abraham...
And that's another thing. There's a lot of claims in this made and no sources. Like, we're going to get to a quote later he uses. We're going to go look at that quote, and I think it's taken out of context.
Yeah, but, I noticed that it's deficient of sources, especially at points where, he's trying to prove that Joseph Smith got things right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's a
some of the
problem.
stuff was incredibly difficult to look up if it had
Yeah.
not been for, say, work I'd previously done.
Yeah. And that's important. Like we need actual sources. Like you and I, we try to put sources in our videos or in the video description when we can. Like there's just not a lot here.
Second, Abraham 1:12 says, I will refer you to the representation at the commencement of this record, which suggests the picture and the text were not next to each other. Third, perhaps the strongest point is that witness accounts agree that the book
that's
of
just
Abraham
taking Joseph
was
Smith's word for it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're taking Joseph Smith's word that it wasn't beside it.
Yeah, it's another one of those claims we need actual evidence for. Like, what do we got? We just go on his expertise opinion. I'm not willing to take.
We're not next to each other. Third, perhaps the strongest point is that witness accounts agree that the book of Abraham was on only one of the rolls of papyrus Joseph purchased. It is estimated that we only have about 2 to 3% of the papyri originally in Joseph's possession. So it's convenient for Cameron to assume we have the exact papyri Joseph translated, but chances are we probably don't.
Okay, this was fishy to me too.
Special pleading.
Yeah, or do we ever have any examples where like we have a Egyptian papyrus and there's an image on there, and another scroll is the text that explains the image? Like,
no.
Yeah, like he first said this was kind of like a shifting of the goalpost. It seemed like first he says, well, sometimes the text isn't right by the image. Okay, fair, but on an entirely different scroll? Really? Like now we're really special pleading.
Yeah. This is special pleading.
Yeah.
But besides that, okay, if we have 2 to 3% of the text, let's translate those.
Mm.
If these are all from the book of Abraham, then surely some of it must match, right? Right?
Some of it should. Some.
Right? 2 to 3% should. I mean, the book of Abraham's not that big of a book.
And then my other question is, why didn't Joseph Smith translate the rest of these scrolls? Like, he apparently had this special gift. Like, why did he only translate the book of Abraham? And they go, well, the other scrolls. I mean, like, I feel like if you're a researcher, you're an historian, you're interested in truth, you're going to go for anything. If I had found
I can answer that. I mean, I heard Bruce Porter explain this one. Well, he was about to start the book of Joseph. Now, if you haven't heard of the book of Joseph, that's just a copy of the Book of the Dead. But Joseph Smith had not yet gotten to translate the book of Joseph because he was martyred with a gun in his hand.
I see. Got us.
So he didn't have time to translate all the scrolls because he was killed.
Yeah, and it's kind of a cop out. I mean, like, maybe, but then again, this is a problem here. You can posit that, but notice what Mormons are doing. We have to keep positing more assumptions to rescue this whole Book of Abraham theory. We keep making this whole Mormon theory ad hoc. Well, what about this? Well, maybe this happened. Well, what about this? Well, maybe this happened. How many assumptions are we going to pile on before we go, this is just a huge violation of Occam's razor? It's simplest to say that Joseph Smith was just wrong. And I bring that up because when you and I did Exodus Rediscovered, we made sure to put in there, listen, we're arguing this is the most parsimonious explanation of the data. Other models are going to be more ad hoc than ours. We don't get that with the Book of Abraham. We get their model being far more ad hoc than the simple explanation that he was just wrong. I'm sorry, Mormons, but that's how it comes across.
Well, there's another issue too when we talk about, say, the structure of the Mormon Church in general, is that divine revelation didn't stop with Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
It continued on with Brigham Young and then every succeeding president. Because remember, the title of the president of the Mormon Church is President and First Prophet. Every president of the Mormon Church has been supposedly endowed with the same infallible gift of prophecy that Joseph Smith was.
And then I guess we got to come up with explanations to rescue that objection you brought up. Like, again, how much more ad hoc are we going to make this? I don't know.
It does get very ad hoc.
Yeah.
And we do get into the territory of special pleading.
Yeah. Now, I did skip over a section here because I want it's something he brings up. Trent Horn. He just brings up definitions of monotheism. I just didn't feel like it was relevant for the topic of this video, so moved ahead a little bit here, just letting everyone know.
Human preexistence is not foreign to the Bible either. In Romans, Paul writes, "Those of us whom God took knowledge from eternity, he also foreordained." The renowned Jesuit priest and professor of biblical studies at the Catholic University of America, Joseph A. Fitzmyer, points out that the original Greek of this verse implies that God had a more than speculative knowledge of man, but rather that he knew us with affection or predilection. Christian biblical scholar Robert G. Hamerton Kelly wrote, "The idea of pre-existence is deeply embedded in the biblical traditions."
So I tracked that quote down because I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but that doesn't sound right. That first of all, the Romans verse he's talking about, he doesn't actually say the verse. Romans 8:29, I think, is what he's getting at.
Yeah, he really butchered that.
That's not pre-existence in the sense that we were like these spirit babies or souls living before we were born. It says for those.
It doesn't even say pre-existent.
No,
it says foreknow.
For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. That's not.
There's not a single responsible exegete that would translate it that way.
No, and it gets worse. So I tracked down that quote that he just gave. So here it is. Here it's in his conclusion of this book here. The idea of pre-existence. Let me see if I can get that a little bit bigger here. Where'd I go there? Yeah, I can zoom in a little bit here just for the idea of pre-existence in both its forms is deeply embedded in the biblical tradition. As protological pre-existence, it describes the nature of entities such as wisdom, Torah, and Christ, and as especially akin to God. In its eschatological form, it is part of the basic pattern of eschatological thought, and once again describes the nature of entities like the Son of Man, Christ, and the Church, as especially related to the nature of God. We shall not here recapitulate the history of preexistence in the biblical traditions that has already been presented in the conclusion of each chapter. Rather, assuming that history, we shall raise certain questions which seem to follow from the discussion and to be some sort of interest to the present-day theological endeavor. So, I mean, he goes on, but this is not talking about pre-existent spirit children like us. He doesn't say people like you and I pre-existed. He's talking about Christ, the church, but like not the people itself in the church. I'm talking about the Son of Man, wisdom, Torah. That's what he's referring to. This seems to be like a quote mine.
Mm-hmm.
Disappointing. And you know what that means?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
You didn't try very hard.
No, I didn't. I admit I was not trying hard at all. So yeah, I don't think we see any evidence of the Mormon doctrine of pre-existence in there. That just doesn't seem to be.
It's not in Romans.
No,
it's not in Romans.
No. Am I still? I forgot to remove that. Okay, let me get this. Hold on, I messed up. Sometimes the StreamYard thing gets a little weird. There we go. I got it there. Okay. Well, let's see here. Let's play a little bit more of this.
If anything, Cameron should be concerned that his own concept of creation ex nihilo didn't come about until 200 years after Jesus' death. So Cameron is just outright wrong.
So I mean the idea that was not developed out of thin air. Like the idea was based on what they were reading in the scriptures. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like that's not the same thing. We don't see ideas like Romans 8:28 that we could support like pre-existence of spirit babies or something like that, whatever they want to call it. But you know, that's not a good comparison. That's a false
no, it
analogy,
isn't.
Yeah.
These are not made up doctrines unknown to canonical Jews and Christians. However, he's not wrong when he points out that Joseph Smith likely didn't get these ideas from Christians of his day. But this is a point in favor of Joseph Smith. How exactly did he produce scripture that aligned with biblical traditions unknown to him if he was simply a fraudster? In fact, the Book of Abraham contains many historical details that Joseph Smith got right that Cameron never even mentions.
Here we go.
I would say he was trying to hide them from his audience, but I'm not sure he even knows about them. This is not the way to analyze the truth claims of any religion or academic topic. It's also a really bad look for Cameron, because one of the main points in his video is that the church is trying to hide information about the Book of Abraham. He even put it on the thumbnail. That guy looks familiar.
It's funny.
Anyway, here are...
I mean, I think just to be credit to Cameron, I know it's hard to make thumbnails you want people to click. Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a video by its thumbnail. We all do it.
5 things Cameron Bertuzzi doesn't want you to know about the Book of Abraham.
First of all, favorite part of the video right there. Love that. Love that part. Excellent. Excellent work. Excellent work, sir. Tip my invisible hat to you.
First, Joseph Smith predicted the existence of a plane called Ulashem. Later, a record of King Naran's sin was discovered that dated to a little before the time of Abraham and listed a place called Ulasum in Syria near Abraham's homeland. Now, in Semitic languages, O and U are sometimes exchanged, as well as the S and Sh sounds, making Ulashem and Ulasum a perfect linguistic match. The correlation is so good that even non-LDS scholar Christopher Wood grudgingly admitted, certainly Ulasum could be superficially linked on phonetic grounds to the Olashem in the Book of Abraham. Olashem is an amazing match, geographically, chronologically, and phonetically.
All right, sir. That's why you're here. Ulashem, Ulasum.
Well, yeah, conceivably on linguistic grounds. If that's your only grounds, yeah, sure. But you would need more than that to make an identification.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when we look here at, say, if you pull up that portion of the Book of Abraham,
right here, yep.
Even the verse 10 here, even the thank offering of a child did the priest of Pharaoh offer up upon an altar stood by the hill called Potiphar's Hill at the head of the plain of Olashem. Okay. There's no Potiphar's Hill in Mesopotamia. That's just because Potiphar is an Egyptian word. It's Padi-Re. Okay. That's a new kingdom name.
Mm-hmm.
So it would by itself be an anachronism. That alone is an anachronism. So we got an anachronism here pointing to some place inconceivably Mesopotamia. And even here, Pharaoh is apparently performing a child sacrifice.
Ladies and gentlemen, in Mesopotamia, okay?
In Mesopotamia. So the king of Egypt, who is not called Pharaoh at the time of Abraham, and again, these are Abraham's words. So
yeah, it's not like with the Bible where they have like an updated place name or something.
No, it's not like a retrojection. This cannot be a retrojection because we're told these are Abraham's words.
Right.
Okay, so you've got anachronism 1, that Pharaoh, right beside a second anachronism, which is child sacrifice. The Egyptians did not do child sacrifices.
Yeah.
Then you got a place with a supposedly Egyptian name in Mesopotamia that has a new kingdom name. That's also an anachronism. It's also a geographical anachronism. And we're supposed to then say that Olashem is a perfect match with Ulashem? That's sort of like a broken clock telling time twice a day.
That's an analogy I was going to use. And also, I mean, yeah. I did a stream with Stephen Boyce back in January where we tried to argue, we were doing a parody. We were arguing the Civil War imitates Homer. we found tons of matches between Homer and the Civil War. Just by looking. Again, as you said, you can when you have so many toponyms in the ancient world, you're gonna have something that's gonna match.
Eventually, yeah. Just statistical probability will get you that.
And I looked up this quote that he gave.
Even that next verse there in 11. Now the priest had offered up upon this altar 3 virgins at one time.
That's something.
Egyptians never did this.
Yeah. What about these gods over here in verse 17? Anything there? Like anything?
What is this god of?
Yeah, it's a weird. It's weird. I don't know what are they saying that it is the name of the god or it's the god of
Elkanah is not a place name.
No, it's a person. He was the
father
father of Samuel.
Yeah, Father Samuel. So I don't even know how that's supposed to apply to Abraham at all. Libna's a place name.
Yeah.
Dang.
Well, I looked up that quote that he had mentioned from Chris Wood.
Yeah.
I was trying to track that down. Here's it more in context. So certainly Ulashim could be superficially linked on phonetic grounds to Olashem mentioned in the Book of Abraham. However, he goes on to say, but a convincing identification would have to be based on much more substantial evidence. And that's the practice of Egyptian religion at Ur of the Chaldeans in Joseph Smith Egyptian Papyri, complete edition from 2012, second edition, 2013.
It's kind of the same as, say, genealogy. You know, when you do a personal genealogy, it's not enough to just be able to connect names. You have to connect names to places. Because people have the same names. So, and the same works with topography, toponymy, where it's just not enough to have a place name because people do reuse place names. You have to be able to connect it to a certain time, people, cultural context, and all that. And the Book of Abraham, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's gone into crazy town.
It's not like when we look at Exodus and their toponyms. They get Ramesses, Sukkoth, Baal-Zephon, Pithom. I mean, it's just like they're getting them all right every single time. And this is just not what we get with the Book of Abraham. It's just like we got one. Guys, we got one. It's okay. It's like, but look at the surrounding context. You guys are getting a lot of misses too. I mean, you hit the dart once, but look at all the times you missed. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. So come on.
Yeah. So, you just brought up Exodus. Okay. You get the itinerary of the Exodus. Okay. You go from Ramesses to Sukkot. Okay. That checks out. That's Cheku. To Pithom, Paratum, that checks out. To Baal-Zephon and Pi-Hahiroth, that also checks out in the Egyptian texts, and Migdol and the Yam Suf, all of that checks out geographically according to extra biblical sources, and it's all related in time and space. It's all 19th dynasty. So we got people, places, names, contexts, relative geography. It all checks out in Exodus. Here, you got the possible identification of one name, and everything else around it is wacko jacko.
Yeah, I remember the first time I read that years ago, and I was like, "Why is Pharaoh in Mesopotamia?" I don't know if that's right.
Why is he called Pharaoh at the time of Abraham?
Yeah, another problem. Just keeps.
Why is he committing sacrifices in Mesopotamia? Child sacrifice, virgin sacrifices. None of this makes a whit of sense.
No.
What's Potiphar's Hill doing in Mesopotamia?
You're asking some good questions. And again, how many explanations do Mormons have to come up with to rescue this? How ad hoc are they going to make it? I'm not saying they can't. I expect we'll get responses, and they're going to come up with things to explain this. Here's my challenge: how is what you're going to say not going to keep getting ad hoc? You're just coming up with more explanations to rescue this.
It's creating a cognitive load.
Yeah, and
this is the problem: is Mormon apologist says, "Oh, we found one thing. You should be satisfied with that. We're done."
No.
Well, but by looking at the text carefully and being careful readers, and we would expect anybody to take the text like this, making certain truth claims and examine it carefully.
Mm-hmm.
That how much of a cognitive load are you going to build up here before the whole structure collapses on its own weight?
Right. Let's get back into this.
Second, the Book of Abraham calls the sun Shinha. Later, the pyramid texts show that Shinha is a plausible rendering for the word they used to describe the sun's orbit during Abraham's time.
Oh, stop this.
Okay. Go ahead.
The sun's orbit.
That's what I said.
That's heliocentric anachronism.
Yeah.
The Egyptians did not have a word for orbit.
Mm.
That's Copernican. That's Copernican philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Egyptian. And this Shinha, what is that? I have no idea. I mean, they gave no source.
Right.
So you can't look that up. How are we to know if it's correct?
Good point.
We need more evidence. Give us, maybe there is a word that's, and here's what I found, for example. I heard a Mormon apologist, Bruce Porter, say this, that per aha, and he said per where, so he got the word wrong to begin with, but Pharaoh, house, great house. Okay. Well, he says that, house is, Joseph Smith translated that correctly because he talks about the blood of the great king. Well, house never means blood. It never means blood. But this is sometimes what Mormon apologists will do, is they will do these sort of, you've got a house, it's got people in it, and they have blood, therefore it must mean blood. And that was Bruce Porter's explanation. Okay? So what is this word Shinha that, frankly, is not readily apparent in the Egyptian text that supposedly means this anachronistic concept of orbit that didn't exist in the Bronze Age?
Yeah, it's pretty strange if you ask me, I have to say. Let's put this video back up and let's play his next section.
They used a different word just after Abraham's time, and it was the more commonly used word. Joseph Smith didn't just get the name right; he even got the chronology right.
Yeah, what words? Where does your source?
This claim is so vague, you can't fact check it.
There's nothing here.
So vague. There's nothing here.
I try really hard to get as many sources as I can in videos for this reason. I don't want someone to do this to me. If this is a video to just make Mormons feel better, fine. But this is not going to be convincing to anyone who's not a Mormon. Yeah.
As I said, this is so vague. Sorry.
Oh, no, continue.
Yeah, he references a word that, and he starts off with saying, well, this could mean orbit. Okay. There's nothing, you will never find the word orbit in any standard Egyptian lexicon. Period. Okay, you won't find that.
Right.
Because I have all the lexicons. Okay. Second of all,
third,
go ahead.
He doesn't reference what the original word was, this Shinha. He says it could be read as Shinha. So he's making a reference to an Egyptian word, but not telling us what the original Egyptian word was. And then he says this dates to Abraham's time. Okay, then presumably Middle Egyptian. And then says that later on a different word is used. And then it doesn't tell us what it is. It's an argument completely devoid of specifics.
Yeah. Yeah, we need a little bit more for sure.
Third, the original manuscript for the Book of Abraham says a woman named Zepta discovered Egypt when it was underwater, which aligns with some Egyptian texts that say Isis discovered Egypt rising out of the water. But Isis and Zepta aren't the same, right? True, but some Egyptian texts name Isis as the daughter of Ptah. And in the time period Joseph Smith's papyri were written, Zepta would mean daughter of Ptah.
So,
Oh,
what are your
boy.
thoughts on there?
Okay. First of all, he makes a reference to the original text of the Book of Abraham. I thought we didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was lost.
Yeah, we're talking.
How
the
does
text
he
is
know that's in the original text?
Right. And again, he said earlier in the stream that we're talking about a text from around 200 BC that had influence from Jewish interpretations. And it's like, now we're going back to the time of Abraham. Like, okay, now we're just, we're changing the narrative as it fits. It's just not working.
Yeah. And second of all, if he's, I saw this in your notes where you said that Zepta is supposedly from Siptah. Well, Satah, and you pointed this out, is not a woman's name.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a woman's name. It's son of Ta.
Yep.
If it was a daughter of Ta, it would be Sat Ta.
I'm glad you said that because I looked that up and I'm like, I think this means son of Ta, and like
It does mean son of Ta.
good
Yeah,
to know my
it's-
research worked out.
Yeah, your research worked out this time. Yeah. You know, it's like Sa Re, son of Re. Sa Ta, son of Ta. And the converse is Sat Re, daughter of Re, or Sat Ta.
Hmm.
Now, the thing is, Isis is never called Sat Ta. He's making an empty conjecture here.
Right.
He's making an empty conjecture that Sat, to give the benefit of the doubt here, Sat Ta is a reference to Isis. And no such reference exists. This is just an empty conjecture. He's making a false equivalence here to try to make it work. It's again, it's massaging, it's including a unspoken premise in his argument. Which is, you got Sata Zata, and frankly, that Z anyway isn't Middle Kingdom. The Z character is Old Kingdom.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's not good.
Okay? And we're going to find some of this in the Book of Abraham, where he uses phonetics that are not contemporary with Abraham.
Hmm.
And this is by far not even the most grievous one. I mean, this is probably a peccadillo. I mean, you could basically say, "Oh, well, that's the old rendering." Okay, fine. You know, that's, you know, but you then he has to then insert the missing premise that, okay, Satah is in the Book of Abraham. Satah refers to Isis, therefore Satah is Isis. It's a missing premise. That middle premise isn't there. It's a statement of fact that just isn't the case.
And the other thing is, like,
And besides,
reality,
Isis wasn't daughter of Ta anyway. She was daughter of Gebenut.
now he said there are some texts that say she's daughter of Ta. Are there any?
No.
Okay. I'm not. Wasn't sure about that. But the other thing that bothered me is he said, like,
they're stretching this connection of daughter to such a ridiculous extreme that, you know.
Well, the other thing is, historically, in reality, Egypt was never underwater when humans would have discovered the land.
No, it wasn't.
So that's another problem there. I mean, that's just historically wrong, unless. So
I
again,
mean, we've got continuous civilization in Egypt going back 10,000 years.
yeah.
Okay.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, before the first pharaohs, you know, before Dynasty 1, you know, we had the Nagata 3 period. We had the Badarian period. We had Nagata 2. We had an Agata 1 civilization. And then even before then, there's a Chalcolithic civilization there.
I got to put this comment on the screen because I just saw it come in. IP, you're wrong. It's actually Muhammad being mentioned here. You see? Yes, Muhammad was prophesied in the book of Abraham. You see? It's over. You see? Just like the Song of Solomon. Yes, always there. So let's get to I believe this is the facsimile section. And I think it's the next one after this. Let's do this.
Fourth, the book of Abraham adds many biographical details to Abraham's life that are not found in the Bible. These include his idolatrous father, an attempt on his life from which he was miraculously delivered, his interest in astronomy, which he taught the Egyptians, and the fact that he wrote his own book. All of these biographical points show up repeatedly in ancient apocryphal writings and even historians' writings. Fifth.
Okay, that works against the case here. This is fitting with a time period again. It's like 2,000 years after Abraham. That doesn't show that it's actually going back to him. Like that, how does that help? That doesn't help at all. That makes it worse.
I mean, the fact is that, like, let's just take the astronomy piece here. The Egyptians had astronomy long before Abraham.
Yeah.
We find star tables that date to the 9th dynasty. That's 300 years before Abraham. You know, they're already decorating their tombs and their mastabas with stellar patterns. So they already knew about astronomy long before Abraham.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, this is just stupidity. You know, and the idea of an attempt being made on Abraham's life, you know, that is often born out of the confusion of the sacrifice of Isaac.
Yeah.
You know, so this is why we don't trust apocryphal sources.
Right. Well, let's get to these facsimiles and then let's let you dive in.
Fifth, Joseph Smith assigns the correct interpretation to many figures in the facsimiles.
I'm going to play this for a good 30 seconds, let him get all out, and we'll let you dive in.
Like what Dr. Petrie said earlier. In facsimile 2, Joseph correctly says that 4 figures represent the 4 corners of the earth. In facsimile 1, he correctly calls vertical lines the pillars of heaven, the exact phrase used by the Egyptians. He calls angled lines the firmament over our head, and a crocodile, Pharaoh. Both are correct. In light of this, is it reasonable to assume that Joseph Smith was lucky enough to get all this right?
All right. Let's pull up the facsimiles here for you.
Okay.
Let's go to the one he mentioned first here. So here it is. He says these are the 4 corners of the earth in 6.
They're the 4 sons of Horus.
Yeah. Now,
and it's in front of a bovine deity. Now, one of the things about this hypocephalus that they don't want to tell you about, and I heard Bruce Porter again talk about this, and you'll notice that there's a cow on the edge of the rim, and you know, it reads, if you go from, say, the guy holding his hands up on the outer rim in the top left corner and read down the text along the rim, it says, "Worshipping the sky cow." Mighty God.
I've heard Mormon apologists say, well, these are the 4 sons of Horus represented the 4 cardinal directions. So
yeah, except the Egyptians didn't believe that.
Okay.
They didn't have the compass.
Yeah.
The compass wasn't in. I mean, we don't see in cultural geography the 4 points in Mediterranean cultures until the invention of the compass by the Muslims in around the 6th century. Okay, that's when we start seeing the 4 cardinal points of the compass. Okay. Now, we do know that the four sons of Horus were the guardian deities of the canopic jars.
Okay.
The fact is, the hypocephalus has everything to do with apotheosis. It has nothing to do with the four corners of the earth. This is just, say, basically Mormon apologetics trying to explain this.
Philosophically, here's a problem here. If he was channeling, if he's getting divine revelation, you can't say it's a translation. But then they'll point to things like they go, well, he got that right. But okay, if he's translating these facsimiles, why didn't he get all of it right? Why are you just picking this one thing and going, well, that one could work, four corners, four cardinal directions. Boom, we got him. But what about 22? What about 23, 12, 3? I mean, 19, 20. Like, why didn't he get those right? So I'm sorry, guys. Like this is cherry picking. Like he didn't bring up this one, if I recall. He didn't get anything right here, as far as I can tell.
He didn't get anything right. No, that's clearly Osiris. That's clearly Hathor behind him. In front of him is Ma'at. That's absolutely clear from the feather on her head. The other two are less clear because Joseph Smith wasn't a very good artist.
Yeah, what is 6 supposed to be, by the way? I was just curious.
I don't know what 6 is supposed to be. Again, Joseph Smith is not a very good artist, so we can't tell.
Yeah,
but I can tell the 3 on the left easily.
Yeah.
Number 1 is Osiris. Number 2 is Hathor. It's very clear from the bovine crown, solar crown. And number 4 is clearly Ma'at.
Yeah. And then of course, this is one they said.
By the way, Ma'at, because Ma'at's in there, that is clearly 19th dynasty.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's clearly a 19th dynasty, 13th century illustration.
Yeah, this is another problem. It's just not fitting with his time.
It's not fitting with his time. No.
Yeah. And then of course we got this. This is where they claim they got 3 right. They got the pillars, the firmament, and he said Pharaoh, but in this one it says the idolatrous god of Pharaoh. So I wasn't sure. Maybe he misspoke or maybe he meant something. It wasn't very clear, but you said he didn't get this right either.
He didn't get this right either.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we've already talked about the leonine bed being a funerary bier, and the canopic jars representing the vessels of the organs of the deceased.
He said these were gods.
Yeah, he did.
And that's not, even I knew that's not right. No,
that's not right. No, they're definitely canopic jars. But what he gets underneath is also not right. Okay. That's not the sky. 12 is not the sky. It's a river.
Well, what would make you think that? Maybe the crocodile?
Maybe the crocodile. Oh, I haven't heard of crocodiles flying in the sky. It'd be terrifying if they did, but 11. This one I found really interesting because I know exactly what that is. In fact, I can even show you examples of this.
If you want to share your screen, go for it.
I will share. Let's share the screen.
All right.
And here and okay. And the first one here. This is a canopic chest. Look at what's on the bottom there.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, it looks like that same pattern, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Okay, now let's take another example from the sarcophagus of Ramses III.
Oh, let me do back that. Sorry. Oops, my bad. Hold on. I lost you. I don't know what I did there. My bad. Solo layup. There you go.
All right. This is from the sarcophagus of Ramses III. At the bottom, we have the same motif. Now, all of this represents the facade of a temple.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yep. Look familiar?
Looks familiar.
Yep. It's that crenellated facade of a temple. This is a common motif in Egyptian funerary practice and literature.
Yep, that is something.
It's not pillars.
Now,
Sure,
what about
guessing it's a pillar? May have been a good guess, but it's a guess and it's a wrong guess.
Yeah. Now,
You
what
see
about
this stuff enough, you know.
That's why we go to the subject matter experts. Now, what about the crocodile? Is that Pharaoh or the god of Pharaoh?
No. It's just a crocodile to show you it's a river. It is.
See?
I mean, you see this in the mastabas. You'll see this in the mastabas where they'll portray a river, and to show you it's a river, they'll put fish in there and crocodiles, sometimes hippos. It's to show you it's a river. It's not a god.
Yeah, it's again for the layman hearing this, they're going to be like, well, Joseph Smith did get some things right. Maybe there's something more. But I mean, like, this is why this video we're responding to needs more.
He didn't get one thing right in that vignette.
Joseph Smith.
One thing. Yeah, Joseph Smith didn't get one thing correct in that vignette. Not one.
The best they can do is they go to that one symbol. I'll go back down to it. That one symbol out of all of these symbols of the 3 facsimiles. And they go, well, 4 sons of Horus, 4 cardinal directions. That could be the 4 corners of the earth. And it's like, again, we're stretching this to make it work.
Except the Egyptians never referred to it that way.
Yes, good point. And it's like also, but it's like,
yeah, 4 corners mean to us. It didn't mean anything to the Egyptians because the Egyptians didn't see the world as a square.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a river culture. It's the way cultural geography works in Egypt is the river goes downstream, goes into the Great Green, which is the Mediterranean, comes down through the underworld, and comes back up the other side.
Mm.
It's a river culture. And basically, Egyptian geography worked upstream, downstream, the desert, and Canaan.
Mm.
That's Egyptian cultural geography for you.
Also, Abraham just wanted to chime in. He said, I was too busy making a covenant with God, not scribbling on papyrus. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Straight from Abraham's mouth.
That's making the covenant.
So I got one more section to play, and then we're going to get to your super chats. So get them in now. We'll start going through them. If you guys get up to 50 super chats, I'll show a sneak peek of an upcoming video I'm working on. So get those in now.
For those who say yes, I have a question.
Let me back up.
How much money are you willing to bet that you can assume that Joseph Smith was lucky enough to get all this right?
Let me back up. I want to get the whole question. Get the whole question.
Now, Pharaoh, both are correct. In light of this, is it reasonable to assume that Joseph Smith was lucky enough to get all this right? For those who say
I wouldn't
yes,
want to play those odds.
I'd play those odds. Yeah.
How much money are you?
What's the odds of Joseph Smith getting all that right? Ooh, not good. Not good.
I mean, again, a broken clock is right twice a day. So I'd be willing to bet that a broken clock could tell the time twice a day. Yes.
Yes. I have a question. How much money are you willing to bet
all of
that
it
you can guess the name of an ancient Syrian geographical feature, the name of a celestial body as it was called by the Egyptians,
Nope.
character names in ancient Egyptian stories,
Also nope.
the interpretation of multiple figures on a hypocephaly, details about Abraham's life that would not show up in later discoveries, and doctrines unknown to you, but present in ancient Judaism. I'm willing to bet that Cameron and other critics wouldn't put much money on that bet.
Oh, you are incorrect, sir. We will take that bet. Oh, sir. Let's play poker. Come on, let's do it. I'm ready.
7 card stud.
But But you know that, as I like to say, you know what that means?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
All right. At the end of the day, again, there's a reason Egyptologists don't take this seriously. There's a reason subject matter experts don't. It's not real, ladies and gentlemen. The Book of Abraham is not a translation of a text written by Abraham. There's not even evidence that it's a pseudepigrapha from 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It's riddled with problems. This is a huge problem for Joseph Smith being a prophet. If you want us Christians to start going, yes, we're going to become Mormons, members of the LDS Church, this is a hurdle we need to get over. And what you guys have presented, it's not getting us anywhere near that. Like, it makes far more sense. Again, I believe a lot of Mormons can reply to this. They will come up with ad hoc explanation. They'll just keep, well, maybe this happened. Well, maybe that happened. Well, maybe Joseph Smith said this. Maybe he did that. How many explanations are you going to posit before you just say, we're violating Occam's razor? We're not being parsimonious. It's simpler just to say that he was wrong. Maybe he's not the guy he said he was. Maybe there's something more in Orthodox Christianity, Nicene Christianity, than what you've been told. And I highly, highly suggest you reconsider and look at the data more clearly. Again, when Dr. Falk and I did Exodus Rediscovered, we made sure to do this in the script. We're going to make sure we're arguing this is the simplest, the most parsimonious explanation of the data. When someone like Finkelstein or Deaver offers a model, we're going to argue theirs is more ad hoc. They've come up with more assumptions to explain this data, making theirs more convoluted. Okay, Mormons, LDS members, whatever you call yourselves, I don't know, I get told different things. Listen, if you want to compete with this, you got to go for parsimony. And you got to show that it's the most parsimonious that Joseph Smith was translating or working with some sort of text that actually goes back to Abraham, because right now the data isn't there. Sorry, that's just the conclusions we seem to have come to. I guarantee we'll get replies to this, but I'm telling you, the explanations are going to be ad hoc. How many assumptions are we going to posit beyond the simplest explanation that this is just Joseph Smith making stuff up? He's not a prophet. He was just simply wrong here. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Falk?
Well, my thoughts on this are that the Book of Abraham is largely plagiarized from the King James Bible.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't even believe it's a channeled book. I don't think it's definitely not translated. I don't think it's channeled. I think what he did was he took snippets out of the KJV and sort of pasted them all together to concoct the Book of Abraham. Because his quotes, the KJV, are everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, you read it and you're like, oh, this is Genesis. Oh, this is clearly the creation story of Genesis 1 here.
Yeah. Table of
Chapter 4,
Nations. It goes wild with the Table of Nations.
Mm-hmm.
Takes little bits out of Samuel. It takes bits out of, you name it. It's just whole, it's lifting whole verses from the KJV.
And the other thing is, like, the first chapter just seems to be Joseph Smith saw the facsimile and was like, let me make up a story to go along with this facsimile. That's a much simpler explanation than chapter 1 actually being a translation of some Egyptian text that just isn't there. And again, if we have some of the papyrus Joseph Smith used, why wasn't that translated? Why didn't later prophets translate? Assumptions upon assumptions, it just makes it completely ad hoc. It's just easier to say, this is just not what you guys think it is.
As far as there being original manuscripts, all we're given is trust me, bro.
Exactly.
That's what we're given, is trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. There was a Book of Abraham text.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, did you translate it or not? Oh, I got it from an angel. Okay. Where's the copy?
Yeah.
We just keep getting trust me, bro, trust me, bro, trust me, bro. What Mormons would say here is, I believe it because I've got a burning in my bosom that it's true. That's an emotional experience. That's not evidence.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Answering LDS, I bet he is not a Mormon. He says the Book of Abraham is so laughable that a good amount of LDS scholarship even reject it. Yeah, that's pretty true. Yep. Channeling sounds like demonic inspiration to me, says Thanos, peace be upon him.
Yeah. If you accept the idea that he did actually channel it.
Mm-hmm. Right. It is raising a red flag for me, for sure.
It would raise a flag because this is not like what we would find in Christian scriptures. Christian scriptures are inspired. They're not channeled. And if you need a foci to receive the text, you're channeling it.
Greatest of all time says resources for understanding the incarnation better. Athanasius on the incarnation. Read Athanasius. You know. Hey guys, been trying to get my mom to start going to church again, but she's a full-blown Q-tard, Q conspiracy theorist, and thinks all the churches have been infiltrated, need advice. I go to Hebrews. Hebrews says we need to, I think it's Hebrews 10, we need to meet once a week. Who is she going to, go with, God or the QAnon conspiracy stuff? Like, show her scripture. Oh, honey, you're wrong is a hat I'd wear. Okay, I'll think about it. Maybe I can make that. I do say that often. Maybe I should do something like that. Answering LDS, this is glad to see you're taking on Ward radio nonsense. You guys also previously debunked one of their favorite arguments that there is no evidence for the Exodus. Yeah, there's tons of evidence for the Exodus. See Exodus Rediscovered. We've got so much. Dr. Falk has written a book on it. Like, he's the expert on like Egyptian furniture here. And like, so like he can tell what's going on in these facsimiles when it comes to that for sure. And like, the Ark of the Covenant fits with the Ramesside period in terms of how it was designed.
Yeah,
a lot
certainly.
See Exodus Rediscovered, parts 1, 2, and 3. There's a ton of evidence for the Exodus. Does the mind have any physicality on your view of mind substance dualism? Also, stop with those weird. This guy keeps showing up talking about Diddy being innocent, and I'm not reading that for sure. I'm an idealist. I'm not a dualist when it comes to that. So I believe all is mind and information contingent on mind. Is it a sin to rip people off and paying illegal immigration? What, dude? Like, you are in the wrong live stream, bro. Like, this is not what we're here for. Thoughts on the late Burton Mac? I mean, I disagree with he was a New Testament scholar. I disagree with a lot of what he said. I don't have any like general thoughts though. Silly question, but if the way God handles the process of death, both physical and spiritual, compared to the way humans take life, is it really unaliving someone from God's perspective then? That's an interesting philosophical question. No, not necessarily, because he's not taking them out of existence from his perspective. So because he has all planes of existence in his purview, I guess you could say that no, I wouldn't. You could make the case that there could be something more ontological happening, and he would be justified more in what he's doing because he's just moving people from one plane of existence to another. Christian Theologics comes back and says, I'll fall asleep during the service if I stay up all night. Well, then get more self-control, sir. Come on, you can do it. Go to bed. Set an alarm. Take a sleeping pill. Knock yourself out. You'll get up. I believe in you. Come on. What is the fruit of the Spirit? One of them is fruit of the Spirit. One of them is self-control. Start exercising it. Do you think Hugh Nibley has anything useful to say about the Book of Abraham? The two manuscripts remind me of the two ambulances. I'm not sure who that is. Do you know anything about that?
I think he's a Mormon apologist.
Yeah. Mormon myths, Book of Abraham apologetics can be summarized as engaging in parallelomania or pseudo-scholarship that maximizes surface-level connections from disconnected sources and minimizes differences that would challenge the thesis. Yeah, good point. Why do the gospel accounts have Jesus quoting a different scripture during the crucifixion? Do you have a video explaining why none of them match? Quoting a different scripture. Well, he said multiple. I have a video on like what were the last words of Jesus, and my point is like none of the gospel authors say what they're saying are his last words. That's an assumption that people add to the text.
And he's up on the cross for a long time. He's up there for 6 hours. You think all he's going to do is have one pithy statement?
Nope, no, I do not. We got a super chat here from a Mormon. I think I remember Jacob. Yeah, he's like, you guys are engaging with what LDS apologetics. You guys aren't engaging with what LDS apologetics has produced on this matter. This is just a sad attempt at boundary maintenance. Be prepared for a response from Stephen Smoot et al. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Scared?
Trembling in my boots.
Trembling, sir. Trembling. I really appreciate the super chat, but this was put in earlier, I believe. We did engage with a lot more in the video, so I'm not sure what you mean. And again, if there's better arguments out there, bring them. But again, there are insurmountable problems with this Book of Abraham stuff. And if the only retreat is to go into the land of unfalsifiability, okay, then there's no argument to be had here. IP, genuinely, what's the best argument against veganism? Should Christians not strive to reduce unnecessary suffering? Yeah, I think that one of the best arguments is, first of all, that from a Christian perspective, Jesus ate fish. Jesus ate meat. He ate the Passover. So obviously God is okay. He doesn't think that's necessarily immoral. The argument also needs to be on the vegan to show that show that the suffering is immoral. That's an assumption. Show that that's our job, because you're assuming a utilitarian outlook, not a different normative ethical outlook like virtue ethics or deontology. So I'd say the vegan has a lot of assumptions they need to justify. Also, I don't think humans can be vegan. I don't think that's really that healthy. I think
It's really difficult for human beings to be vegan.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
I think some can. I can't.
And a lot of them cheat. A lot of them end up cheating
Mm-hmm.
at the end, because you can't get the same nutrition in vegetables that you can out of meat. Meat is essentially concentrated plant matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, besides, meat's tasty.
There's the best argument. Okay. What do you think about taking back Christ is King, i.e. Christ is King, so serve the poor, Christ is King, so love your Jewish neighbor? I like it. Maybe I'll do that on Twitter to just troll the groypers. Sorry, the gropers. I call them gropers. Did King Nimrod kill Abraham in Sanliurfa? I visited Goblet Tepe, and it's a big thing, that area, about 45 miles. No.
What?
No, he didn't. No, not at all. Great timing. I was exploring polemics against Mormonism. Mormonism is filled with ad hoc reasoning. Yeah, like we talked about in this stream for sure. You should bring on Dr. Smoot to talk about this. I believe that's the Mormon apologist studying Egyptology right now.
Is he a real doctor?
I don't think yet. I looked it up.
So he's like Dr. Pepper.
I think he's working on it. I'll give him that. What was the guy's name again? Stephen Smoot. That's it. Stephen Smoot. What I saw is that he is currently a doctoral candidate in.
So he's ABD.
Yeah.
He's ABD. He hasn't finished his dissertation.
Okay. Yeah.
If he's a doctoral candidate, he hasn't finished his dissertation yet.
Maybe he has. I just Googled it so briefly when I saw the super chat on the side, and I was like, maybe he did finish it. I don't know. That could have been something old. Who knows? Don't know much about him, to be honest. Hi, Dr. Falk and Michael Jones. Do you have any videos talking about the Sophia of Jesus Christ Gnostic texts?
Nope.
Nope. Sorry. I do not. Came in late, but do you recommend any books in relation to this topic? God bless you guys. I started reading the New Mormon Challenge. There's a guy by name Nate that I met at ETS. He's got a book on Mormonism, and it's escaping the crap out of me right now. I looked it up, and I was going to get it. I'll think of it throughout this. I know there's a book, and I'm trying to remember what it is, but I just freaking forgot it. If Mormonism is true, why does Paul say it's not?
I just bawled.
Okay. Late reply since I finally caught you live, but how dare you accuse me of being a Mohammedan? Names from Star Wars. Revan Thisari.
Darth Robin.
Also, my journey wasn't that interesting. Just a near decade of looking into the arguments because of a meme during high school and trying to outstubborn God. I lost and didn't even get a broken hip out of it. I'm not sure what this is about. Sorry. Apologize. So
Probably a reference to Jacob.
Luke Hansen says, hey, Luke Hansen here, the creator of that video. I'm just hopping in the live stream and looking forward to hearing your analysis. Well, we appreciate it, Luke. Again, none of this is personal. This is all Cameron's fault. I just wanted an Egyptologist to sort of like give a better view on this. And so, take what we have. If you want to respond, go for it. I don't know if we're going to really do it. But I mean, like, again, the philosophical challenges on top of the problems that Dr. Falk brought up are going to be hard to surmount, what I would say. We need an explanation that's not going to retreat in unfalsifiability. That's going to be less ad hoc than just Joseph Smith was wrong here. So that's a challenge, sir. Appreciate you coming. Thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. So the gist of the stream, the Book of Abraham is a phony, big fat phony. Yep. That sounds right. Yeah.
That's about right. Yeah.
IP, you're wrong. It's actually Muhammad. I already mentioned that earlier. Which of those drawings did the aliens make? Dr. Falk? The aliens built the pyramids. Which one did they make?
Hard to say. Could be.
Sure.
Could be.
Mm-hmm. Man, I gotta look at that book. That book is Bob. I'm trying to remember what that book is. Falk, Moggs, all LSD. Is Diddy innocent in mid-Egypt? What are you talking about? What is this? Why is Diddy always coming? I don't get it. Not Mormon, but just putting this out there that you guys do realize that Dan McClellan says a lot of things that I'm surprised he hasn't been excommunicated over. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. I know a lot of Mormons don't really like him, and so they get happy when I go after him. And so I appreciate it.
Well, here's the thing. Dan has been employed off and on by the Church of Latter-day Saints.
I see. Yeah.
So if they excommunicate him, it's not a good look. They don't tend to excommunicate former employees unless they get really in the face.
Yeah. That is interesting. If you're wondering how bad Ward Radio is, they tried arguing for Salt Lake City being in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Really? That would be insane. That's definitely not there. That I've not heard anything of that, but no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
No. How can you not believe this prophet has miraculous knowledge, literary perfect book, and he's prophesied in the Bible? Muhammad Seth Smith must be true. So when was Matthew 16:28 fulfilled? See, my video was Jesus, a failed apocalyptic prophet. Got a whole video on that, so I cover that there. KIP, I know it's off topic question, but I wanted to hear your opinion about the Son of Man figure. Say it's about Israel, not Messiah. And Daniel, no, that's the Messiah for sure.
That's Messiah,
7.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know who would say that. That's hard to argue. I mean, he's not given. I mean, he's worshipped. Israel's not supposed to be worshipped.
I think Dan says it.
Dan McClellan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't. And in the New Testament clearly interprets it also as the Messiah. So if you're a Christian, the New Testament commentary is important as well. So where can I read about the church fathers? Any websites? Yeah, New Advent. New Advent has a lot of the church fathers. Go there.
ccel.org. The Calvin College Electronic Library, or the Christian Classics Electronic Library. They changed the name. That has probably the largest collection of church fathers.
Thoughtful faith. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Including, say, reprints of the Phil Schaff volumes.
Yeah. Thoughtful faith must be shivering in his boots. I don't think so. I think he's pretty chill. Also, how do you feel about John Dellin? I don't know who that is.
I don't either.
You guys think we're just know these people? It's appreciate it, but I don't know everyone.
I know people in my wheelhouse.
See my video, The Problem of Suffering, A Christian Response. I have covered that in that video. That's not really the topic here, but check that video out. It's up on my channel. Problem of Suffering, A Christian Response. What are your thoughts on the Mormon belief of large, tall Quaker people being on the moon? What? Wait, hold up. What about Smith polygamy? Smith's martyrdom? Just curious. Well, polygamy is wrong and evil. I'm glad the Mormon church today rejects that, except for the fundamentalist LDS church. But I don't know about the tall Quaker people being on the moon. I don't. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to Google.
Well, they do believe in that people traveled from other planets. It's in the Book of Abraham.
Yeah, it's also, they talk about the moon. The time is apparently slower on the moon in the Book of Abraham, and that's wrong.
That all life came from the planet Kolob.
Yeah, not accurate. And also, the time is not slower on the moon. I think it's actually slightly faster by like a few milliseconds, actually. So there's another problem for the Book of Abraham. Again, insurmountable problems here. Thoughts on Crowley's Book of the Law, channeled from Egypt? Oh, yeah, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. Couple of streams ago, I mentioned I was baptized recently. Well, that's great. In part due to your videos. That is great to hear. Asked if my name meant I was a Muslim about my journey. You asked if my, oh, I see. Now it's coming back to me. I appreciate you bringing that up. I now it's coming. So great to hear that. Glad you're baptized. Thanks for refreshing my mind on that. Why does Isaiah 9:6 call Jesus everlasting Father, since he's not the Father? I think Paul Copan's explanation is this is a typological fulfillment Jesus has. It's about somebody who's actually born in the time, like the next
There's also
generation.
another interpretation to a father of eternity. It quite literally says in Isaiah 9:6, a father of eternity. So it's not saying he is the father.
I see.
A father of timelessness.
That's a possibility too. Yeah, I know Copan says it's typological. It's not. Jesus fulfills it typologically. So there's another.
Well, the text literally says a father of timelessness, a father of eternity.
Yeah. Do you guys think we landed on the moon? This is obviously fake. We're in the Matrix, right, IP? We're not in the Matrix, and we landed on the moon. Moon landing happened. So
we're not batteries. We're not human batteries powering a supercomputer simulation.
Yep.
With our brains that are so powerful, it could toast a piece of bread lightly.
You see, this is a horrible plot. Yeah, humans would make horrible batteries.
Worst batteries ever.
So you guys got 50 super chats. I'm going to share the a little bit of the upcoming video I have. Did Josiah write Deuteronomy? So a little bit here, and then I will close this out. Wait a minute. Hold on. That's not going to play, is it? No one can hear that. I don't think anyone can hear that. I did that wrong. Hold on. Let me do this the right way. Sorry about that. I just realized, crap, that's not the right way to do this. I need to actually go in here, get the video file itself, because it's not going to play. And so no one's going to hear anything. Let me find it here. So sorry about that. It's J. Let me go to my J section. I have so many folders in here. I sort of just screwed myself over, and now I can't find anything. I got to organize my stuff better. Just here it is. So let me put this up, and that way you guys can actually hear it.
You read 2 Kings 22. It says that during the time of King Josiah, the high priest discovered the scroll of the Torah hidden away in the temple after it had been lost for some time. Josiah immediately began enacting reforms to fit with the teachings of Moses by celebrating the biblical feasts, removing idol worship, and enforcing its rules. But many scholars are convinced this was all a fraud. It wasn't discovered at this time. Under Josiah, priests and scribes wrote portions of the law code of the book of Deuteronomy as part of their Yahwistic reforms and only attributed them to Moses. This is when the Lord was exclusively worshipped as the only God of Israel, and he was elevated to be seen as more than a lowly tribal deity. The scribes of Josiah created the laws of Deuteronomy and projected them onto a mythical past that they invented. But there are problems with seeing Deuteronomy as a product of Josiah's reforms. In fact, some of the very passages that have been used to argue this actually display characteristics that better fit with Israel's pre-monarchic times. Deuteronomy appears to be an ancient text that was only rediscovered under Josiah, not created.
All right. So got this video coming out, I think, in 2 weeks. Did Josiah write Deuteronomy? Found some interesting research to pair with the video I just put out, the True Age of the Torah. Actually, this was supposed to be one video, but it was so long I divided it into two. All this evidence for early dating the Pentateuch. So got that coming out soon. So keep your eyes out for that. Anything you got coming up on your channel you want to promote, Dr. Falk?
Yes, we've got a popcorn review coming soon.
Ooh, I know who it's on. From guessing. Can't be a certain someone who maybe have been in a certain Egyptian tomb lately. I don't know.
The popcorn never reveals its secrets.
But I mean, sometimes. We'll see. But look for that. David Falk's popcorn reviews are excellent. And yeah, love having you on to do this kind of stuff too. It's always super, super great to have you on. When is that coming out, by the way?
When I edit it.
Oh, okay. So, soon, ladies and gentlemen. Very soon.
It'll be in April.
Oh,
it'll be in April.
Excellent. I got a video of You Should Popcorn review. I got to send it to you, but I'll get that to you later. Maybe if you want to. I'm not saying you have to.
We always take suggestions. In fact, almost all our popcorn reviews are from viewer suggestions.
Excellent. And this is Dr. Falk's channel is linked below. You can check out his channel here. A lot of great stuff here. Stuff on Jericho, for example. So yeah, highly recommend you subscribe. And wait, it didn't come up. Stupid thing. Hold on. Why did it do that? Add to stay there. Now it's up. Okay. Why did it freaking StreamYard? Anyway, here it is. So yeah, just recently replied to Frank Turek on the dating of the Exodus. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he did that.
That was something.
I could not believe he did that.
And your last popcorn review, I believe, was on him. Was that a live stream?
Yes, it was.
Was that a live stream? No, it's never a live stream, is it?
It's always a premiere. Our popcorn reviews are always a premiere.
Yeah. Here it is. Yeah. This is you replied to him here, and yeah, that was some bad stuff. Yeah. So subscribe to him down below. Thanos, peace be upon him, says, I find that Dan McClellan, I seem to find Dan McClellan everywhere, and my atheist friends bring him up a lot. I have a hard time answering his arguments. Any tips on where to start learning how to defend Christian positions? So the first thing I would say is check out some of the videos I have on this channel. We've had a lot of back and forth with him before he blocked me. So that should tell you something. I had Robert Bowman Jr. on my channel back in January, responding to some of his videos. I have other stuff planned as well. So check out the channel. I'd recommend The Incarnate Christ and His Critics, which is a very good book. It's just sort of answering the idea that not Dan directly, but a lot of the idea is that Jesus doesn't really claim to be God and claim to be Yahweh. So check that out. You should do a popcorn review on Dan McClellan sometime.
Here's the thing. Our popcorn reviews tend to be of a certain format. So they're usually between half hour to 45 minutes. That's the sort of the content sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan McClellan's videos are usually shorts.
Yeah.
So unless it's something very focused and very specific, we don't normally popcorn shorts.
Yeah.
Just because there just isn't enough content there.
I'll see if I can find you one. Some of them are a little longer. Maybe there's something there.
McClellan does hit and run. That's what he does. That's his tactic, is to hit and run. So he gives you a short and is out.
Yeah, and I got stuff planned. I got to work on this week, for sure. Either of you saw the Prince of Egypt movie? Yeah, it's a classic. It's great. I love it. Yeah, excellent.
Didn't Moses break out in song?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's incredible. Incredible.
I'm sure that's period accurate.
Absolutely, just like the Book of Abraham. Same thing. So. All right, so thank you for coming, everyone. Again, tomorrow I'm going to be live on David Wood's channel to give him a hard time. And then I'm going to be, I should promote this so Ruslan doesn't yell at me later. I'm going to be in San Diego for the Bless God Summit. I'm obligated to promote this. So if you live in the San Diego area, you come out and meet me. I'm going to be at a conference. It's blessgodsummit.com. Just type that in, blessgodsummit.com, and you'll see all these great speakers out in the San Diego area. So you can attend in person. There's also going to be a debate. David Wood's debating Alex O'Connor if Jesus claimed to be God. And I'm going to try to give him some good arguments for that. So I'll be there. I'm flying in Wednesday and I'm flying out Sunday. So I'll be there for all 3 days. So if anyone wants to come out and meet me, go to the Blessed God Summit. So, any final words before we close this out?
About my book.
Get David Falk's book. It's right here. Excellent. And that's on Amazon everywhere.
That's on Amazon and a lot of other major book retailers.
Excellent. And of course, subscribe to his channel.
Yep.
Probably find a link there pretty easily. So thanks for coming, everyone. And we will see you guys next time. I'll be back on this channel again next Monday. We stream every Monday, 8 Eastern Standard Time. So I'll be back next Monday with actually a very interesting stream. It's going to be kind of a discussion / debate kind of thing we're planning. So you might find it interesting. So I'll have some people on that don't agree with me, and hopefully they don't destroy me on my own channel, be humiliated. So thanks for coming. See you guys next time. And remember to subscribe to Dr. Falk.
You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.